If Optus have been unable to protect basic personal identification information, how can Australians have any confidence that their metadata is safe with these organisations?
Ed?
Well, I think that type of question, if I may say, I think you're not the only one. And I think it's the type of question not only to Optus, but to a lot of other businesses that store data. And this is so important to modern businesses who collect such enormous amounts of information. We hand it over willingly in many respects, but in some cases we have no choice. If we want to access the service, we do have to hand over a lot of personal data, particularly to validate identity around passports, driver's licences, Medicare numbers, a whole host of other means as well. Those data pools that get created in businesses, they have to be treated way more seriously by a lot more businesses. Optus should be a warning to a lot of Australian businesses about the way it works. And I don't think it's just an issue of technology, because my view is you can have the best systems in the world, but if the culture of the place doesn't value the data, and if you have people, for instance, and there have been cases where passwords were left on a post-it note on a computer and then all that data was accessed and misused, it's really serious. So I think Optus does need to, in terms of any remedy that's required as well, I think they're going to need to step forward and stump up for that. And they are going to have to work very hard to rebuild confidence, because at the heart of your question is an issue of confidence in the way that your data is managed by business. And that shouldn't just be something on Optus's shoulders, it should be across the board.
Hank, what happened in your case? Were you caught up in this?
Yes, I was a past customer of Optus. I left them about a year ago, and I've received the email telling me that my personal identification and identification numbers have been released. So I'm in the higher risk category to
So
some...
where does that leave you now? What do you have to do?
So what I've done is I've changed most of my online passwords. I will need to look into changing my driver's licence number. And now my Medicare card number, which was not disclosed in the initial communications from Optus.
Hands up anyone else who's been caught up in this week. Wow.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really?
It raises the question, doesn't it, Alan, about... Ed went to this before. You can't live in the modern world without giving away so much of yourself.
I think Ed 100% correct. I mean, it's frightening. I mean, basically, these major organisations and entities know everything about us. We know they know everything about us. They seek all this information from us. And every day, independently of Optus, we would be worrying what they were going to do with it. But there has to be a penalty here, Ed. You know, Optus have got to face the music. People have got to go. There's got to be a financial penalty so that the message is sent to corporations that if they are at grave risk. I mean, when you think of thousands and thousands of Medicare numbers and driver's licences, you've got to go do more than say, oh, well, you know, Optus will have to pay for the reissuing of the driver's licence. I mean, come on. It's got to be far more than that. This is serious stuff.
And by the way, Optus has said that they'll pay for the driver's licences, and we're still waiting for the answer on passports. So be nice for them to hurry up and
Bridget,
get that answer.
It's Optus now, but it's not... Who's to say it couldn't be anyone else tomorrow? Absolutely. This is the world we live in.
Identities have been stolen.
Yeah, but this is the world we live in, isn't it?
You know, millions of Australians' identity has been stolen effectively. They don't know what the impact of that is going to be financially, reputationally, even from a physical safety perspective. I think it's an incredibly serious issue, and I think, you know, well done for the government to actually say you've got to pay for the passports, etc. But it's not just big. We assume the big guys in town, like the Optuses, have got the systems in place to protect our data, and we worry about the small businesses. But now, clearly, this is much more broadly an issue.
What's been going on? Claire O'Neill says Australia's 10 years behind. She's the Cybersecurity Minister. 10 years behind the rest of the world. You were in power. Shouldn't we have seen this coming?
Well,
what more could have been done?
Yeah, so we made some significant changes in legislation around critical infrastructure. Bodies such as our energy system, our communication system, they have a tighter regime, shall we say, in regulatory environment.
But if the penalties Alan was talking about before were put in place years ago, if this happens, this is what's going to happen to you, would we have seen a more stringent response?
So, Stan,
from corporate Australia?
I bet a lot of your viewers still click on the emails that we all know they shouldn't. There's no Nigerian prince waiting. You know, there is a whole... You know what I'm saying? So there is a personal responsibility for all of us that this world we now live in, the technology is changing all the time. Government regulatory environments needs to keep pace with that, obviously, and how we store and use personal data is
this the
critical.
thin edge of the wedge? I mean, I've got a mobile phone here. I guarantee that everything that's being said tonight is somewhere inside that mobile phone. I mean, that's the way the world's functioning.
And Ben's sitting here, and I have to say, as an Aboriginal person as well, Jacqui, Aboriginal people have known what it's like to have your data controlled by the state for a very long time, haven't we, Ben?
Yeah, we also know what it's like to have sovereignty over data and ourselves. And I think Optus, for me, observing it, has just showcased how numb we've become to enabling and allowing corporations to gather and hoard so much information about us. So my mind's thinking about, yeah, sure, how do we ensure that this doesn't happen again, but how do we move to more of a decentralised space where people can have sovereignty over their data, sovereignty over themselves?
Jacqui, you've spoken about this before, and I know you've been involved in the veterans' inquiries and stuff as well, which goes again to protection of your data, of your privacy, of your health records, of all of these things that are apparently available to anybody who can get access to them.
Yeah, we definitely see that in our stuff being chucked around, especially in the Department of Veterans Affairs. There's no doubt about that. But I think the other thing is I want to know why, when you leave a company, why does it need to keep your data? Quite frankly, that should be the first thing that's put into law. You cannot keep that data any longer. If you don't belong to them, nor can they sell it off. This sell-off of data, I think, is absolutely rubbish. It's just not on. I think the other thing is also with data in this country is that we don't collect a lot of it ourselves. We don't actually have those data hubs here. A lot of them are overseas. Now, why aren't we building a lot more of these data collection hubs so it is sitting here in the country? Surely that would have to be a foot forward in helping with our cybersecurity if we were keeping a closer eye in our own backyard.
Hank, Ed's here. You've got someone from the government you can ask a question of. What do you think is the role of government here? What would you like to see done?
I'd like to see penalties imposed on corporations and stricter criteria, particularly around past data. But to have my phone service, I had to give my driver's licence. There was no way to have a phone service other than that, and that was mandated by government that I had to do that. We need to think about all of those things and how much data is being pulled together.
Ed?
Yeah, I think we do need to have a look at that regime, the penalty regime, and I think we've gone well beyond the idea of companies self-regulating themselves on this, and it is going to be important. Again, if I can go back to your earlier question about rebuilding confidence and trust, it is going to take a lot. Those companies cannot simply have a situation where they do the clean-up work and then expect forgiveness as a result. I think there needs to be a very strong signal sent that this is important. And the other point I would make as well is I think there is an awakening now within the broader public about how much data is given over, how much is held. Picking up on Jacqui's point, the amount of data that's bought and sold and the way that that's treated as well. And it's not just a metadata thing, it goes to, like this is, big chunks of information. And so, there is, I think, a requirement to reconceive the way in which how much data is collected, how it's stored, and is there a better way to do it to validate identity rather than creating big data pools.
And especially around an essential service like a phone, a mobile phone, that is necessary. How we pay our bills, how we communicate with family, but you really can't.
Well, our credit
function
cards
in
are on our
modernity.
phones.
Absolutely, right. So those essential pieces, I think, where you really don't have a personal choice about whether I'm going to engage with this company or not, I think that requires a specific set of regulations.
Do they need all this information? This is the point. I mean, they decide they take this stuff from us. I mean, it's impossible. You get a driver's licence, a birth certificate. Do they need all this stuff to validate who you are?
I don't know, but I'll tell you right now, they've got enough information on you people in Optus. If they want to go and get a loan from the bank, unless you go out there and move really quickly, they could be borrowing against your name. That's where we're at today, and that is shocking. So it is that bad. You need to be aware of that.
Hank, good luck with sorting out your details. Anyone else affected here as well, all the best in trying to work through all of this. I hope some of these answers, helped you out tonight as well.